Welcome back to Creative Tien channel. In the last video, we did a calculation of the neckline for sweater knitting. And today I'm going to try it on my LK150 knitting machine using this chart. I'm only going to do the front part. The back piece is knitted the same way. In the future, we'll talk about how to machine knit the shoulder slope. With a little bit of angle slanting down, the fit will be much better for your sweater. So last time we already calculate, I want 8 inches wide for the opening, and that's 40 stitches based on my gauge. And I'm using the Knit Peak Sportswear yarn, and I have my tension number 5 on my LK150 knitting machine. And for this sample, I also add 10 stitches on each side. So totally, I have to cast on 60 stitches, the 40 plus 10 on each side. I already start with my E-rub cast on, 60 stitches total, and I'm going to knit a few rows first. And don't forget about hanging some weight. The traditional way is to put one side on hold and knit one side first. Or you can put one side on the waist yarn first, so it doesn't interfere with the other side. It will be easier to knit this way. And we always start from the center and knit outward. You can start with the right side or left side, doesn't matter. And as you see, we have the flat section here in the center. And for that part, I have 16 stitches. So you can choose to bind off those 16 stitches first, or you can put them on the waist yarn. And later you can pick up those stitches for the ribbing. I'm going to start by knitting a few rows of waist yarn for the left side and take it off the machine first, so I can concentrate on the right side first. First, I'm going to put all the stitches on the right side to the D position. And I will set the carriage to the holding position. And on the LK150, it's a Russell lever going to number 1. And I thread my waist yarn, and I will start knitting a few rows. Now I'm going to cut off the waist yarn and take this part off the machine. Now you can see this is off the machine. Now we'll focus on the right side first. I'm going to bind off the center part, the flat area. On the right side, it will be 8 stitches. So I will bind off the first 8 stitches, and then we'll do the shaping. For the position of the carriage, I always start from outside of the garment. So I'm doing the right side, so I have the carriage on the right. Now I'm going to thread the yarn and knit one row, so you will end it in the center of the garment. It will be in the center point. And make sure you have the right tension. I have tension 5, and I changed the counter back to 000. And for now, I don't need the holding position. I can set it back to the standard stockinette stitches. Make sure all the needles on the left side back to the A or the non-working position, and knit one row. And I'm going to bind off the center 8 stitches first. So I use a transferring tool and do your usual bind off. Now I bind off 8 stitches. Make sure those stitches are back to the non-working position. and we will start the shaping. And here is a chart we made last week after the calculation. So we'll need 1 row and bind off first 3 stitches. So thread the yarn, knit 1 row. Now after knitting 1 row, my carriage is on the right side, so I cannot really do the decrease here. You can still do it, you just have to cut the yarn on the right side and move the carriage to the left side, and then we will start decrease from left side again. Or we can change the chart. I think we need to decrease every 2 rows. So I can do this. Instead of knitting 1 row, I can knit 2 rows and bind off 4 stitches, and then 2 rows, bind off 3 stitches, 2 rows, bind off 2 stitches. This way you don't have to cut the yarn. I didn't think of that when I did the charting last week. It's better to bind off after every 2 rows. So I will go with the new green color line. I need 2 rows and bind off 4 stitches first. So I already need 1 row, I need to knit back. And then bind off the first 4 stitches. Place the yarn back to the carriage. And next, I need 2 rows and bind off 3 stitches. Next, we'll need 2 rows and bind off 2 stitches. And then we need 2 rows and bind off 1 stitch and repeat twice. Now we are at the last part of the shaping. Knit 3 rows and bind off 1 stitch. So I kind of have the same problem as before because my yarn is on the right side and I have to bind off the left side. But this is only 1 stitch, so there are many other ways I can do it. I can just transfer the first stitch to the second, or I can do the full fashion decrease. I can use 2-prong or 3-prong and move 1 stitch in. And empty needle back to a non-working position. So now I decrease 1 stitch. So we are done with all the shaping. The rest is just straight knitting. And according to our chart, the straight area, I wanted about 1.5 inches. So that's 10 rows. So I will knit 10 rows straight and then bind off or put it on the waste yarn. Now I finished the right side. I'm going to bind off and take it off the machine. So that's what we have so far. That's the neck curve line. And then we are going to do the other side the same way. Now I'm going to hand back this part back to the machine and pick up the stitch. I'll start from the 0 first stitch, second, now I hand all the 30 stitches back. I'll hand some weight. We can start knitting. And the same way as before, I want my carriage to be outside of the garment. So I will put it on the left side this time. I'll thread my yarn and knit to the right. Now I will do the same as before and bind off the center 8 stitches. I'll place the yarn back to the carriage and we can start follow this chart again, but in a mirror image. So I will start from the center, knit 2 rows and bind off 4 stitches. And next we will knit 2 rows and bind off 3 stitches. And then we knit 2 rows and bind off 2 stitches. Next we'll knit 2 rows, bind off 1 stitch, and then repeat 2 times. One more time. And the last part, we knit 3 rows and decrease 1 stitch. Now we are ready to do the straight knitting, and I will knit 10 rows and bind off. So that's the neckline after we take it off the machine. This should be the straight. It looks a little bit curved here, but that should be a straight line. And I just need to take off the waste yarn. And you might see the holes, that's for the decreasing. You can always attach a yarn and weave in some yarn end to close the hole. So this is after some blocking. You can see the edge is still a little bit wavy, but if we add the ribbon, it will be okay. The back piece is knitted the same way, and next time we'll also look at the shoulder shaping to have a little slope. Thank you so much for watching and see you next week.